You're listening to Commander's Demand with your host, Sports PSP, exclusively on the Grid Network.
Hey, what's up, folks? It's your boy Sports PSP in the building. Hope everyone is enjoying a magnificent, wonderful day. As you all know, welcome to Commander's Podcast. It's a podcast discussing all things surrounding the Washington Commanders. I have a very special guest on the show here today. I appreciate him for taking his time to actually come in and on the podcast. As you know, he works on the Grid Network as well as I do. He puts out great content regarding NFL stuff. And want to give a quick shout out to this guy. About to bring him on, Ryan Flowers. How you doing, my brother?
What's up, man? How you doing, Parnell? Thanks for having me on, man. It's a blessing and an honor.
Always. So, brother, please take the time to give the audience some context about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So for those who don't know me, my name is Ryan Flowers, aka Clutch Sports Talk. So basically what I do is I'm strictly NFL. I started my podcast literally in the middle of COVID, 2020. It actually it grew, or it was born out of the 2020 NFL draft. I was watching the draft. That was the draft that Roger Goodell was in front of the fireplace. And he was reading off the picks and stuff like that, which was kind of unique, obviously, for the situation that the world was in. And, I'm following the draft. I'm watching social media, and I see all these people just talking random stuff. Like they're proposing things that couldn't even happen, because of salary cap wise, or these transactions could never happen. Right. Mm-hmm. Or they were suggesting, what team should get this player or why they should get this player. And I just kind of got annoyed, right? And so I went on to Facebook Live at the time. That's when people were still on Facebook, I guess. I went on there and I just started, talking, and next thing you know, I had like 5 people in the live. Then I had like 10. And then I think I got up to like 55 people at one point. Wow. And I went through the first, it was pretty dope, man. So the first round ended, because, they only do the one round. And then that night I went back and watched the playback from the Facebook Live, and I was like, that was pretty fun, man. That was pretty fun. So then I decided, you know what? I need to get my voice out there. I need people to hear what I'm talking about. I need to get that information out there because a lot of sports fans are misinformed a lot of the times, right? And I'm pretty sure you and I know a lot of people that don't know about anything really, or they think they know about certain things, but they don't.
Right.
Long story short, I created Clutch Sports Talk. I started off on an audio. I forgot the name of the app, but it's a pretty Anchor. I think it was Anchor. And I strictly did audio. And you could only imagine at that time that it was no sports going on in the world. So what I ended up doing was just finding different little sports pieces to talk about, whether it was like youth sports, because I coach football, I coach basketball. I did a topic on what happened to African-American baseball players, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So then finally sports comes back. I decided to make the jump from audio to doing a live show, which Clutch Sports Talk Live. I did that for about 2 years or so on it, pretty much on and off. Started YouTube. And then I decided, with my busy schedule, I had to kind of scale back. So now I just strictly do NFL talk. But I went from a full sports variety show to just NFL because that's my bread and butter. That's my expertise. So that's where I'm at today.
Oh, I mean, interesting, man. I mean, you obviously done a lot. When did you first realize that discussing sports was the thing for you?
You know what, Parnell? That's a good question because my whole life is revolved around sports. Like sports is everything to me. And I feel like I have a good knowledge or a good base. And so really they're watching that draft that night in 2020 on my couch and like hopping on that live. That's when I realized that, you know what? I got a responsibility to all sports fans out there to get people informed as much as possible.
Right.
And so that's kind of when I realized that I can actually do it. And then learning how to, record and do all the stuff that I've been able to do so far. It's just been an amazing ride. But I knew that night in 2020, April 2020, that I needed to do this.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you actually brought up the draft in 2020 because that was during the time when I actually started doing like the Instagram videos and stuff like that because like most people we were bored and I figured, you know what, I might as well do some videos on Instagram, do some stuff, just to try to get out there and just try to bring some content. But yeah, I mean, obviously you got to capitalize, whatever's out there. And it's actually great. It's actually fun to bring sports fans some excitement. Um, Football. Let's talk about your football team, man. Who you root for?
So I'm a diehard Cowboys fan. I'm originally born and raised in Los Angeles, California. So that's weird, because I grew up around the time when the Rams and the Raiders were in LA or in that area. But I was never a Raider fan, never a Rams fan. For some reason, I was just drawn to that star, man. Actually, when I was little, my first football team was the Dallas Cowboys, Pop Warner. So that's kind of what sparked it. And then it was during, the 90s heyday when they had Emmett and Michael Irvin, Troy Aikman, and they got Dion. And I think that's when my passion for the Cowboys really kind of it escalated. And here I am now. And fun fact, I used to work for the Dallas Cowboys many
for
years
real?
ago. I did. I worked in their marketing and like their tourism department. So I used to, when they were at Texas Stadium. So I did that a couple years ago back in like the 2007 through 2009
All
when I
right.
lived in Texas.
All right. When's the last time you've been to a Dallas Cowboy game?
Oh man, it's been a while. I would say I went to it was in the new stadium at AT&T. It was the Redskins. It was a Thursday night game against the Redskins, and we still had Ryan Switzer on the team. I don't remember what year that was, but it was a Thursday night game, and he ended up having a big game. He returned a punt. I don't remember the year though, but it was within the last 10 years for sure.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Now obviously, Dallas, they've had a really good offseason so far. I'm quite sure you and most Cowboy fans are very satisfied. Of course, you traded up to get Brandon Cook. You got yourself a really good number 2 wide receiver. You also traded up to get Stephon Gilmore, which was a big addition for the defense, and also to pair him up with Trayvon Diggs. How do you like the Dallas chances as far as winning the division and competing for the NFC?
Well, they've been a lot. They've been more active than in years past, right? Like you said, they added Brandon Cooks. We got Gilmore. We just re-signed Tack McKinley just a couple hours ago, defensive lineman. Still working on some other guys. Like obviously we got LVE, Tag Pollard, yada yada yada. But for me, as a Dallas Cowboy fan for over 20 plus years, I just really need to see them. And well, let me back it up. In regards to this particular free agency class that they have here, if I had to give them a grade, I would say it's probably like a B, right? I think Gilmore is kind of the one that really saved them. I really want them to follow the methodology of like the Rams or even the Eagles per se. I know the Eagles didn't win the Super Bowl, but they put themselves in a position to win the Super Bowl by going out there
Right.
and making a really big splash, right? Dak Prescott obviously is our quarterback, and he needs more weapons, right? I know Brandon Cooks is the guy, but I mean, it's a reason why the guy's been on 4 or 5 teams in the last couple of years or so. I'm not saying he's not productive. Durability. I will say this. I think what they're trying to do, they made a mistake by trading Amari Cooper away. I mean, it's a simple fact, right? And I think they're trying to replace him with Cooks, right? I don't think it's the same type of. They're not the same guy. I get it. Amari Cooper had a really pretty solid season in Cleveland, but to me, when Cooper left, Dak's productivity, I would say, kind of dwindled a little bit, right? If you go back and look at the stats. So for me, I would say I have to see it to believe it on the field. Like maybe Cooks comes in and he's a really, really good number 2, right? Behind CeeDee Lamb. And now we don't have to rely on Michael Gallup to be a number two because Michael Gallup is coming off a severe knee injury. Okay. So I don't want to say anything about the class overall because I don't know what the expectations will be, but as a fan for 20 plus years, like I just said, man, it's kind of like put up or shut up time. Like, are we going to do this thing? Or are we not? Because you got teams that have been to Super Bowls, won a Super Bowl, they sucked for a while, and then they're right back in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like with the Eagles, per se. They won a Super Bowl a couple years ago, had a couple down years. They make some moves, boom, they're right back in the game. So things like that. So, I'm ready for them to put up or shut up. That's where I'm at right now as a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned it, I mean, a lot of Cowboys fans, unlike you, I talk to a lot of Cowboys fans because I live in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
There are some die-hard but delusional Cowboy fans. They say every single year this is going to be your year.
Right.
And you are one of like the most few objective Cowboy fans that I know. And of course, a lot of Cowboys fans were disappointed by the divisional round loss to San Francisco.
Right.
I thought the defense did its part to hang in there. Unfortunately, Dak picked the wrong opportunity to play that bad, especially coming off a very impressive game in the wild card against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Right. Speaking of Dak Prescott, how do you feel about him? Because look, he came off a terrible season, worst season of his career. He was tied for the most interceptions last year with Davis Mills. He didn't play enough games. They still keep Cooper Rush. And if you look at the NFC East, as far as with quarterbacks, I got Jalen Hurts as the best quarterback in that division. I have Dak at 2, Daniel Jones 3. We don't know who Washington is going to start, but it seems like to me it's probably going to go to Sam Howell. How do you feel about Dak?
I've had more recently, I've had a love-hate relationship with Dak. When he first was drafted, I was like, well, first of all, Dak Prescott to me was a black Tim Tebow. That's my first impression of him in college, right? He ran the football, really wasn't like known to throw like that. I think he's a better thrower than Tim Tebow for sure.
Obviously. I think he's more black Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, maybe now, but I'm saying out of college. If you remember him, he ran a lot in college. Like you go back,
yeah, he wasn't known for throwing that much. I'll give you that.
I think it was like 2015 against LSU on ESPN on a Saturday night. You throw that game on, man. You look at that tape. That guy ran a lot of RPO, a lot of quarterback draws, things of that nature. And he kind of resembled Tim Tebow, right? In my mind. So I remember when we drafted him in the fourth round, we got him. Yeah, fourth round. I was kind of like what? Like really, Dak Prescott? Because someone said, "Hey man, we drafted Dak." I was like, "Get out of here! We didn't draft Black Tebow," and sure enough, we did. And so, and I know I'm kind of egging this on, but I want to build up some context with my whole relationship with him. So you go to the one, I think it was the second or first preseason game that they had against the Rams in the Coliseum, and he played that game, and I remember he threw a dart. I want to say it was to Dez Bryant. Corner in the end zone, and I was like, "Damn, that looked pretty good, man. I ain't gonna lie, right?" And then he threw another pass. I forgot the other guy's receiver's name, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, he had a pretty good game. So then I was kind of like, "All right, well, we still got Romo, whatever." Then Romo gets hurt against, I believe it was Seattle.
Yeah, the preseason game.
Preseason game in Seattle, and I was like, "Oh man." Then he comes in, and I remember the shift, like. Zeke was drafted that year, so Zeke was getting the ball. He was running over Cam Chancellor, and I was kind of feeling like, you know what, we actually might have a chance as long as we don't ask this rookie to do too much, right? So then, obviously, we as a Cowboys fan, 2016 was like one of the most memorable seasons that I can remember as a Dallas Cowboys.
13-3.
13-3. It was a really,
number one
really
seed in the NFC.
Exactly, like it was like a magical ride, right? And then we end up falling to was it Green Bay? I think it was in the divisional round.
Yes. So, yeah, and you actually came back.
Yeah, we were down
tie that game, and then Aaron Rodgers, of course,
throws to what was it? Cooks, I think the guys were
Jared Cook.
Jared Cook, right? So after that season, I was kind of like, you know what? Dak was. I mean, a lot of people don't even remember this. He was low key like an an MVP candidate. Like nobody remembers that from 2016. I mean,
He
was he
was.
one of the
He
top
was balling
guys?
that year.
He was balling, right? He wasn't one of the top guys, but he was definitely someone that you can consider like, oh, okay. I think he ended up getting like offensive rookie of the year or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to go back and look. But
No,
nonetheless,
you're right about that. He did win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
okay. And nonetheless, I was like, okay, good. We're gonna build. 2017, I was like, we're good. And then I started noticing like his he throws the ball really high. He's kind of late sometimes. And I think what started to happen was they went away from what he was really good at, and which he was good in college, running the football. And I get it, fast forward, he breaks the ankle or leg, whatever the case was, against the
Right.
Giants, and next he gets paid, and now he's kind of like, I got paid. I'm a quarterback. I got to sit here, and he's not that guy to me. I feel like he's better when they move him around a little bit, because that's when, if you go back to 2016, when they had him, they had Zeke going. That was a pretty good offense, and they didn't ask him to do a lot. I think now they ask him to do too much, and so he's taking that weight along with the contract, and I feel
Right.
like he's forcing a lot of things, and he's not comfortable. And so for me now, I'm kind of like, I like what he does from an intangible side of things. He's a good leader. You always expect him to say the right thing at the podium, but I'm not
Great
in that locker
character.
room. Great character guy. You don't have to worry about, turning on the news one day and this guy's like, oh, he's pushing weight across state lines or nothing like that, or domestic violence or anything like that. At least, from what I can tell.
Right.
But
No
long
off the
story
field
short,
issues.
right, no off the field issues. So, but now I'm kind of like, dude, I need you to just rein it in. Look, I know you're getting paid a lot of money, but you're not Mahomes, you're not Burrow, you're not one of those types of guys, right? That's just a fact, right? We just need you to protect the football, make the timely throws that you need to make, and that's it. So I'm kind of like with him at that point, kind of like it's time to put up or shut up too, because now he's going into the 7th season as a starting quarterback in the National Football League. He is what he is, right? And as far as where he ranks in the NFC, is at least the NFC East, since this is a Washington Commanders show,
Yes.
I would say that because you had Jalen Hurts number 1, right?
Yeah.
Which
Yes.
after last season, I'll give him that. I got to see Jalen Hurts do it again, right? Because
All right. That's fair.
I'm not going to discredit the guy. I think he had a fantastic season last year for sure. MVP like, right? If he doesn't get hurt, but I got to see consistency over a length of time. Now, if he comes out and they struggle, now is he still the guy? So, but going into the season, it's going to be Hurts 1, Dak 2, Jones 3, and then whoever you guys roll out with, whether it's Sam Howell, which it's likely to be, or Jacoby
No, he's
Brissett.
probably going to be. It's either him or Jacoby Brissett, but I still think Dak is middle of the road. Like I don't have him top 10. I think he can be a top 10 quarterback when he's consistent. And that's the problem with Dak, because he gives you some very good performances, but then he gives you some performances like, come on, Dak, you're better than that. So
it's not consistent. It's like you pointed out with the playoff win against Tampa. It's like you throw for 400 yards, and I get it. Tampa Bay defense and Niners defense is 2 different monsters. I mean, we can't even compare the 2 defenses. But there were some plays that probably should have been made that we expect a seasoned quarterback to make. And you look at Brock Purdy, he didn't turn the ball over. He made the throws that he needed to make, and their team won the game. Whereas a guy like Dak, he's like, I think there was a play that, I think it was heavily scrutinized where T.Y. Hilton was wide open down the seam, and he doesn't even go there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's gone back and forth. That wasn't the call. Whatever. I don't know, man. I coach the position. I work with quarterbacks extensively. For me, I felt like that was an easy read. He was looking to do something a little bit more complex, and I think that's where he's at right now. He just needs to relax. And I think that's what's so good about Jalen Hurts and what they do for him. They don't ask him to go out there and dissect plays. Here's the play. We're gonna scheme it up. This is what you got to do. It'll be there if you trust us. But sometimes Dak, he's trying to do too much. And so, although he like you said, he is kind of
he's a roller coaster.
Yeah, he's a roller coaster. He's an above average quarterback. In my opinion, honestly, Parnell, to me, there's only 2 quarterbacks in the league right now that I would like hang my hat on: Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. Those are the only 2 guys. After that, it's kind of like everybody else, in my humble opinion, I feel like quarterbacking is at an all-time low in the National Football League. But I think like people kind of they get kind of fooled by, oh my God, this guy like Lamar Jackson, oh my God, he's running, Justin Fields, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel like we haven't really seen great quarterbacksmanship. And I know I just made up that word, but we haven't really seen
That's
that.
a good word.
We haven't seen that, until we throw on like the Joe Burrow and the Patrick Mahomes. And I know they're not perfect, but when you watch Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes play each other, those games, I mean, the 4 times that they played, those have been really good games, really good games.
They have.
And great
They
quarterback
have.
play, man. And I get it. They got talent, and every quarterback needs talent, with the
Right.
exception of maybe Patrick Mahomes and maybe Joe Burrow. So to me, that's why I feel like those guys are the guys, and after that, it's kind of like who's gonna take the next step. And Jalen Hurts took the next step this year. Can he continue to maintain that as he goes into his 4th season now as
Right.
an Eagle, and his third season now as like the full starter, if I'm not mistaken. So
Right.
the NFC East, though, I will say this. I don't know we're going to talk about that, but just to
Oh,
preface
we will.
the NFC East is going to be a very tough division. Nonetheless, it's a very tough division.
Do you think at some point soon, do you see Dak delivering Dallas a Super Bowl?
Honestly, man, I don't. And it's not because of him. I feel like it's the ownership. Look, if Jerry Jones was just a GM, right? Do you think a GM and the moves that he's made and the seasons that they've had, you think that he would have had a job at any other organization?
I mean, you make a great point.
I mean, I would say most of your viewers or listeners will probably say, yeah, he'd probably be fired by now, right? I mean, you look, we've had,
But Jerry ain't gonna fire himself. He
no,
won't
right,
do that.
right. And I feel like with any great organization, whether it's some sports, business, hell, even relationships, man, like if you don't have it buttoned up at the top and you don't have people in a position that are really good at what they do, then you're never going to be successful. It's a reason why, the Eagles were, in disarray not that long ago, and then they fired Doug Peterson, and then
Right.
they get Nick Sirianni. He looks like a mess, right? And then they turn it around, and then they make the Super Bowl, and they're literally a holding call away from possibly coming back and winning the Super Bowl, right?
Right.
And then you see other teams across the league that have gotten better or have kind of maintained themselves, right? But the Dallas Cowboys, man, to me, it starts with Jerry Jones and his inability to step out of his way. I'll give Jerry Jones credit for as far as building a brand. The Dallas Cowboys, one of the biggest brands in sports history, not just football, sports around the world. When I
There's a
worked for the
reason why
Cowboys,
they're called America's team.
honestly, man, Parnell, they're the world's team, because when I worked for the Cowboys, we would have fans coming from like Tokyo. I don't know if you ever heard of a country called Kazakhstan. You ever heard of that country before?
No, I've never.
Probably Google it when we're done. You're gonna be like, "There's Cowboys fans in Kazakhstan." Yes, there is, man. The Cowboys are a brand all over the world. I had an opportunity to take a tour with the Prime Minister of Japan, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Cowboys!" Like they're so big, and that's because Jerry Jones is a larger than life guy. But when it comes to the day-to-day football operations,
Right.
he's kind of like Al Davis in a sense,
Right.
where they're kind of seen and they don't really understand. The Cowboys are fortunate to have Will McClay. Right. If without Will McClay, who was kind of like the player.
Oh, he does. He is amazing when it comes to evaluating and drafting talent.
Exactly. Without him, the Cowboys would just probably be, I don't know, who's a really crappy team who's been like that for years. Like, I mean, the Raiders. I mean, like
My team.
The Cowboys,
I mean, I could say that.
I mean, yeah, actually, in a weird way, because look at all the talent the Cowboys have had in the last 15 years. And we had guys like DeMarcus Ware, Jason Witten, Dez Bryant,
DeMarco
Tyron
Murray.
Smith, DeMarco Murray. Like, well, I'm talking about like Hall of Fame type caliber kind of guy, right? Travis Frederick, like all these guys. And what?
Tyron Smith, Zach Martin.
We've only got like 3 playoff wins in like the last 20-something years. Like,
yeah,
come
a lot
on,
of
man.
it. A lot of it falls directly on ownership, and I've said this before to Dallas Cowboy fans, and some of them agreed with me. I feel like the only way you ever going to win a Super Bowl is that Jerry Jones is going to have to walk away, and Jerry ain't going to fire himself because. No. And I told people once Sean Payton was going to get a head coaching job, he wasn't going to get it in Dallas. because in order to get a guy like Sean Payton, you're going to have to give him a ton of authority and power and money. And I don't see that with Jerry.
That's an excellent point. You're absolutely right. And Peyton's a Parcells guy. And
Right. And he knows him very
Dallas.
well.
He knows him very well, and he doesn't want to deal with that because what? Parcells ended up getting fired because he wanted control, and Jerry was not willing to do that, and therefore the Cowboys, to me, and it's not even. I don't care who you put under center for the Dallas Cowboys. It's not going to be their fault why they don't make it, man. And I know the guys got to play the game on the field, and I get all that, but it starts with the ownership, and he's done questionable things to me, or he hasn't done anything sometimes, right? And to me, it's too much of a circus. And I don't think unless you got like a Patrick Mahomes kind of guy back there, no one can overcome that, man. And unfortunately, I don't think. I mean, trust me, man. I would count my lucky stars if the Cowboys ever even made an NFC Conference Championship game. Like to me, that would be a Super Bowl, right? But we can't even get out of the divisional round, let alone the wild cards. We'll have to see.
No, I agree with you. I mean, everything you said was well said. Speaking of football teams, I gotta talk about, unfortunately, my football team, the Washington Commanders.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, that's why we're here. As you know, man, I think ever since Daniel Snyder stepped in as owner back in 1999, it's been a dumpster fire as an organization. The last time we've actually won a playoff game was like 2005. The last time we've actually been to the playoffs was the COVID year, 2020, 2021. I think that was Ron Rivera's first year there with the team. And I think we have talent. I mean, we got some good talent. I mean, I like what I'm seeing with our defense from Darren Payne. I'm glad that we took care of him. I'm also glad that Eric Bieniemy will be our offensive coordinator. I would like to see him as a head coach, but that's a story for another day, and we all know why he's not a head coach. But how do you feel about Washington overall? Because I know that a lot of teams don't really take Washington seriously. They would talk about the Giants, the Eagles, Cowboys. But how do you feel about Washington in general?
When I think about Washington overall, the first thing that sticks out, at least in years past, their front seven. They've invested heavily on the defensive line, right? You went out and got Young, a couple years ago. You just talked about Payne. Montez Sweat. You had what's the guy's name? The white boy, Carrington.
Brian Kerrigan, yeah.
Kerrigan, right. So that rush, man, has always been a problem for most teams that play, especially within the division. Defensively, I mean, that's where you guys hang your hat on. I think they're getting a little older around. Obviously, we got Young. He's got some injury issues. Hopefully he bounces back and continues to stay healthy. I think that'll be a good sign for you guys. Like you said, he took care of Payne, which you needed that. Like if you lose him, that's a blow to your defensive front. Outside of that, I think I would say they're pretty average on defense outside of the front four. But that front four is definitely elite, and as it should, because they've invested so much in it. Offensively, you got McLaren, who's definitely the guy that I think a lot of people kind of slept on. Smaller guy. Played in the Big Ten, I don't think the Big Ten gets a lot of credit in regards to like skill player wise, but they're doing their thing out there. But where you guys, and this is what drives me nuts about them, and a lot of teams, but particularly with you guys needed a quarterback for sure. And if you're going to have any success in the National Football League, you got to have a good quarterback, right? A really elite type of quarterback. And I don't know, what their thinking is with Sam Howell. They're going to say the right things in front of the media. He's our guy, blah, blah. They signed Jacoby Brissett, which to me, he's a really good backup. Like, that's what he is. Like, I don't think you sign him to come in and be like, lead us to the promised land, Jacoby, because he's just not. This is his fifth team, if I'm not mistaken, right? So he's been around a while, right? Why not go and try to land Lamar Jackson? And I know I get it. I'm not really a big fan of Lamar Jackson. I mean, I've been documented. I'm kind of like the Lamar Jackson hater. People have dubbed me that, but I just kind of like, in this situation for the Commanders, why not go get a guy like that to offset some of the offensive inefficiencies that you guys may have? I do like your tight end. He was a converted quarterback. What's his name?
Logan Thomas.
Logan Thomas. I think he's a big body kind of guy, good size. Who's your running back again? You guys have
Gibson. We have Antonio Gibson.
Yep, and I liked him. I like him.
Yeah.
But again, your offense is kind of outside of McLaren. You have, you guys just lost Sims to the Raiders, yesterday or the day before?
Yeah, we did. And we got Marcus Kemp from the Chiefs, who also knows Eric Bieniemy's his style of offense. So
and
we'll
you guys
see
also
there.
got a lineman too from the Chiefs as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Andrew Willie. And he knows, and of course, he knows Bieniemy as well. Yeah.
So with that said, I think there is some talent there. And being a coach myself, sometimes a lot of coaches get a lot of credit for having talent, right? But we won't know if Eric Bieniemy can really coach, because now he's going to have to really scheme up some stuff, right? And I think he doesn't get a lot of credit for what happened in Kansas City, because he works under Andy Reid. And Andy Reid, I mean, he's a brainiac when it comes to offensive efficiency, right? He has a proven track record. So I think, and I know you kind of talked about a little bit about Bieniemy not getting a head coaching job, but I think now this will be his opportunity and I think that's probably the reason why I would have suggested maybe go out and spend that money on Lamar Jackson, man. Like why not? I mean, really, because what you're going to roll out is just going to be something that maybe makes it to 800, 500, and maybe sniffs the play. I don't even know. And especially in a division as packed as the NFC East, and you look at it from
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, you look at the quarterbacks in that division already, and I mean, I know Daniel Jones ain't the greatest, but under Brian Daboll, he had a pretty solid season, man. Like, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, he
good enough for him to get that contract.
Exactly. I mean, he 15 touchdowns, which is pretty pedestrian for a quarterback. But he played smarter football. He runs the football more than people give him credit for. I mean, he had like 700 yards in rushing.
Right. But here's
go ahead.
But here's the thing, though. I don't see Washington getting Lamar. I would love to have him personally, but we have to give Lamar. I don't know how much money. I don't think it's Deshaun Watson, like $230 million, but you're gonna have to pay him at least 200. Like, if you're just paying him like $133 million, obviously he's not going to go with it. So it has to be in that ballpark of $200 million. But it seems like to Washington, they want to go forward with Sam Howell. I'm like, okay. And I like Sam Howell coming out of North Carolina. He's 6'1", 220. I like him. Do I think he's the long-term solution for Washington? No. I would like to see Lamar there with Bieniemy and how Bieniemy would utilize Lamar Jackson. Mm-hmm. But I just don't see it. And plus, Baltimore, you're going to want some draft picks. And I don't know how much we can offer on the table for Baltimore. Which is why I see Lamar going either to Atlanta or somewhere else.
And those are valid points, and I wouldn't really disagree with it. But here's the thing with the Commanders. It's like, well, there's two ways to look at it. And one, your side is very economical, right? You want to be very fiscally safe, right? Because you don't want to give him a boatload of money, give up picks, any type of compensation for this guy. But then you got to look on the other side of things. It's like, you guys are kind of like been stuck in like a vortex, and it's the same revolving door. I feel like that team needs hope. Your ownership is not great. Honestly, the stadium's falling apart.
It's a disaster.
The stadium's falling apart. And it's sad because Washington, to me, honestly, man, and this is not even no cap, it's a very proud organization, man. I think back to my, younger days, because I'm almost 40, right? I'm telling my age out here on your show. But I remember watching Doug Williams and what was the running back? Riggins and all those guys and the Hogs. Right. Like it's a very proud organization. And I feel like the football, especially the NFC East, would be better served if the Commanders were relevant again, in my opinion. It's kind of like the Lakers. When the Lakers are no good, to me, basketball sucks. Like when the Lakers are good, the NBA is better, right? I feel like if the Commanders are relevant, it really elevates the NFC East even more. And not so that even the NFL, because it's one of the most proud organizations. And I feel like they just got to make a splash, man. And when you roll out Sam Howell and then you roll out Jacoby Brissett. And I'm not even a Commanders fan. When I saw that, I was kind of like, well, they're probably
Okay.
going to win 6 or 7 games, and probably that's about it.
I think the Commanders, and yes, I think in order for us to get to where we want to go, we have to make some huge splashes. But I feel like with the Commanders, I mean, historically under Snyder, they've made bad moves, like the Albert
Yeah.
Hainsworth deal. Like when we gave him that $100 million contract, which
Oh, yeah.
flopped,
Crazy.
and then the Josh Norman deal, I think was like 5 years, $75 million,
We
and for
robbed them
like
too.
right. And I thought, okay, here we go. We made some big moves, but it just never seemed to manifest for us. So you
But
talked about
I'll say
how
this. I'll say
go ahead.
this, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'll say this in regards to those players. Lamar Jackson's a quarterback, and I feel like
Obviously,
the
yes.
quarterback they affect more than an interior defensive lineman or even a corner. And I feel like, for whatever it's worth, I know Lamar hasn't had a lot of success in the playoffs, but what's his winning percentage, like 70%? Like,
He's
I
like
feel like that was
45-16 as a starter.
right. Like, so he does win football games, man. Now you gotta be concerned about the
Durability,
durability.
because the past couple of years he's been
He's been
injured.
hurt. He's been hurt, but it's like, it's either you take a gamble or you don't take the gamble, and you kind of just you kind of play it safe, which they've been doing for the last couple of years or so. So I get the reservation on not trying to make a splash for a guy like that, but I feel like if I wanted to try to kickstart my organization, I might have to just take a risk on a guy like that and see where it takes me. And I get it. If you do it and it doesn't work out, you guys are handcuffed for a couple years. And so that's why I understand it's a big decision. But honestly, I feel like you guys are just going to be doing the same thing you've been doing for the last 10 years. So it's either piss or get off the pot type of situation when I look at the Commanders.
If we decide to get Lamar Jackson, how much
Mhm.
draft compensation do we have to give up?
I mean, the Ravens are going to want at least a first rounder for sure. And I'm all, well, here's the thing. Next year's draft class is going to be good as far as quarterbacks are concerned. There's some guys, maybe you guys suck again this year, maybe perhaps.
Caleb
And
Williams, Drake
you
May.
get Caleb Williams, right? And he's a good quarterback. So maybe that's the route, and it'll be cheaper.
Right.
That's the one way of looking at it. You give the enemy. See, does Ron Rivera does he stay on? That's the other thing. Like, are you
Well,
gonna have
he
a
signed a
brand?
5-year extension, so the
I mean,
question
but guys
is,
get fired. Guys get fired. Like,
yeah,
realistically, they get fired. I
but
mean, and he was on the hot seat, I think, a little bit. You guys started playing a little better down the stretch towards the end of last season. That kind of maybe preserved his job. But let's just say he's gone. You get a new head coach. What happens to Eric Bieniemy now? So it was a weird.
and if he,
It was a
but the
weird.
good thing is though, if he gets fired,
And Bieniemy might be the guy.
If Rivera gets fired, and if Bieniemy steps in as a replacement and does well,
Yeah, that's true. Maybe he's the guy. Maybe he is the guy. But if he does well, then Ron Rivera will probably keep his job. So
right.
that's the other thing too. So Ron Rivera is a steady. See, everything about you guys is very kind of like it's like tan. It's very vanilla. It's plain. It's kind of like, we're gonna play it safe. We got Ron Rivera, defensive minded coach, made it to a Super Bowl. Didn't win it obviously, but he was very stable in Carolina. I think he's been kind of a stabilizing factor here in Washington, but you guys need to take it to the next level. But it starts with the quarterback, and he's never really had a consistency with quarterbacks. But he's had, obviously Carson Wentz last year. Howell played a little bit. Heineke. Who else has been there?
Kyle
I mean,
Allen,
yeah,
Dwayne
Allen
Haskins,
with
rest his soul.
Dwayne Haskins, rest his soul, rest in peace. So he's had like 5 quarterbacks in his tenure there, and you look at any successful team around the league, man, there's a constant consistency, and I keep using that word, consistency, with the head coach and the quarterback. And Washington really hasn't had that. It's been kind of like a turnstile of guys coming in, coming out. And that's why I keep alluding to, maybe go get an established guy like a Lamar Jackson, a former league MVP, win 70% of his games. Like, he'll be the best quarterback you guys probably had, probably since, RG3 was really good his rookie year and a year after, but then obviously his career was cut short due to injuries. But
Yeah.
you guys haven't had that position sewn up in quite some time. And like in anything, man, you need
Right.
that quarterback. Having a good quarterback is almost like having a good woman in a relationship. If you pick the wrong one, you're messed up, man, and you end up having a baby mama. And we all know about baby mama drama for those who got baby mama drama out there. I mean, I don't personally, but for my guys out there, even the ladies out there, maybe you got baby daddy issues. You pick the wrong baby daddy, man, you got problems.
Hey, you
So
made your bed, you got to lay in it.
exactly. And I feel like you guys, you just got to go and get a quarterback, man. And whoever the coach is going to be, whether it's Rivera, Bieniemy, Bieniemy's going to need a quarterback too at some point. And maybe if he does
Well,
get the
yeah.
job, maybe they're in the market for Caleb Williams, and maybe that's the answer. And so maybe this year for you guys going into this 2023-2024 season, it's kind of like, well, it's 18 games of just tryouts or auditioning. Who's going to be on the team for next year, kind of type of deal. So if you're okay with that as a fan, then you have to go into the season just think, we're probably not going to be in contention for anything, but let's see who's going to be around. Is there some bright spots than the usual suspects that we know already about, like Young or Terry McLaurin and guys like that?
It's interesting that you brought that up because look, Washington, as we all know, they're gonna move on. Of course, you heard the reports about Daniel and Tanya Snyder.
Right.
Pro Football's Talks. Mike Florio reported that they've cleared out of the facility. There may be a possibility that Washington could move on and clean up house, not just with ownership, but also with coaching. They may get rid of Ron Rivera, and who knows? They may hire some other head coach or whoever, and they may try to look for a quarterback, and they may go with Caleb Williams or Drake May. Would I love to see Lamar in DC? Yes, I do think in order for us to compete in that division, it all comes and the NFL in general, it all comes down to quarterback play. I can have a good enough defense. I can have good enough weapons. I can have a good enough head coach. It won't matter unless I have a good enough quarterback. I don't see Baltimore trading to get Lamar. They're not going from Baltimore to DC. But I don't know how much money Washington is going to give him. I know Lamar wants a lot of money for himself, and I don't blame him, but I don't know what Washington could offer on the table. But I do understand your point as far as having a proven commodity at quarterback. And of course, I would feel a lot better if I had Lamar Jackson as opposed to Sam Howell. But speaking of ownership, I want to talk about Dan Snyder. As I mentioned, Pro Football Talks, Mike Florio reported he and his wife, Tanya Snyder, they've cleared out of the facility. I'm reading an article here from ESPNs.com from Brian Windhorst and Adam Schefter. Canadian billionaire Steve Apostopoulos has become the newest potential bidder to tour the Washington Commanders stadium and training facility as he seeks to buy the franchise, league sources told ESPN. So Astopoulos also joins Josh Harris as well as Magic Johnson as far as bidders to potentially becoming new owners of the Washington Commanders. And I think that has to be a huge start for Washington because I feel like as long as Daniel Snyder is still the owner, Washington fans aren't going anywhere. We don't have anything to look forward to. And it seems to me, and I feel very optimistic that Dan Snyder's days in Washington are coming to an end. What says you?
I think I absolutely agree. I feel like he's been a terrible owner. He's just a really rich guy. Credit to him, he's a billionaire. Right? Obviously, you got to be somewhat intelligent to make the money that he's made and to own a National Football League team. But at the end of the day, man, he's kind of driven this organization into the ground. He's the opposite of Jerry Jones as far as like in terms of value of the organization. Now, I think you guys are still valued at a decent amount because it's a pro team, but I feel like the Commanders could be more than what they are, right? So, and I have really good experience with Magic Johnson. Not that I know the guy personally, but I grew up in LA, right?
Right.
And I've seen what he's done in the different organizations that has his hands on, right? Even starting before that. So in LA, he's resurrected neighborhoods in LA that were gang areas, that were drug areas. You would have it was basically what nice areas. He's, some people say it's gentrification, whatever you want to call it, but he's taken these areas and he's revitalized these areas, right? So he's a good businessman. So anything he's a part of, I think would be beneficial for the Commanders. You saw what he did with the Dodgers, right? The Dodgers couldn't get over the hump winning the World Series. He somehow gets his way into the ownership group there. Boom, they win, right? With the Lakers, he has that touch to get LeBron to come to the Lakers. Boom, they win a championship. I believe he's been a part of the LAFC, the MLS team in LA. They just won an MLS Cup, right? In like their fourth or fifth year of existing, right? So wherever he goes, he must bring a team of people with him, right? And it's one thing if Snyder was the owner and he kind of stayed away or got out of the way, but he doesn't. He gets in the way, right? So whatever you guys decide on, whether it's the billionaire owner from the New Jersey Devils, whoever it is, if they come in and they let the professionals do or they hire right people, then you guys will be on the right path. But if you get another billionaire, playboy that just wants to do the things their way because they think that and this is the problem, when you have people that are that rich, they think they're smarter than the room in every aspect, right?
Right.
And rightfully so, right? Because they're billionaires, right?
They don't like to be told what to do.
Exactly, and they want to do it their way, and sometimes that doesn't always translate to different areas of industry, right? If you're not an expert on National Football League, you can't just come in and say, "All right, man, let's just go do this, do that." And a prime example is this. Couple, and I know we're switching topics, but basketball. The Brooklyn Nets had this Russian billionaire guy that came in and brought the Nets, and they sucked. He had all the money in the world, but he thought he can do it better than what people were doing in the NBA, and it didn't work out. And we've seen that across the board. So my best, I'm hoping that Magic somehow is able to kind of affect and get in some part of the leadership capacity of the Commanders, and I think that would be beneficial for you guys as a fan base and as an organization, because he's got that magic touch. I mean, no pun intended, but he has a track record of winning everywhere he goes. And I don't know if it's because of him or maybe the people he surrounds himself with, but he's been very successful outside of being a basketball player. He's had a Hall of Fame basketball career, and I think he's had a Hall of Fame type of senior executive type of career too.
I think Magic would be a perfect fit for the Commanders or business in general. I mean, we all know the Magic Johnson movie theaters, the Starbucks, the Burger King, gyms. I mean, as you mentioned, what he's done for communities. I feel like when Magic touches something, it just turns to gold. And the thing is, with Magic, he's willing to listen and he's willing to surround himself with people who would tell him what he needs to hear instead of what he wants to hear. And if I have another billionaire owner, is he or she willing to listen? Is he or she willing to take constructive advice? Are they willing to do whatever it takes for the best interest for the franchise? Not for themselves, but for the franchise. With Snyder, he gives me the impression he just won't stay out the way. He won't allow other people to do the job, and I just feel like he's just a disaster. And the problem is with a lot of people with money and power, they don't like to be told what to do. Nope. They'd be damned if someone tells them what to do with their money or how to operate. So, but I would love to see Magic do it. I mean, he and Josh Harris, the owner of the New Jersey Devils, and also with the Philadelphia 76ers, they tried last year to be owners of the Denver Broncos. That didn't work out. But I think if he comes in a big market like DC, nation's capital, oh my God, Washington Commanders fans, they would be ecstatic. Magic would do whatever he can. Maybe Magic would pull off the Lamar Jackson trade. You never know. He would pull off the Lamar Jackson trade. Not that he would hate Sam Howell or anything, but of course, Magic is known for bringing in stars, the cachet, the business. So
That's his trademark. I mean, look, when he was with the Lakers, we talked about LeBron. When he's with the Dodgers, they went and got Mookie Betts, one of the better baseball players at the time. Like that's and then even with LAFC, I don't know if you follow soccer, but Gareth Bale was a very notable European soccer player, played in the Premier League. Like he knows what to do. He knows how to get butts in the seats, and I think you guys need that. And I know you guys are a loyal fan base, but I think at some point enough is enough. And I feel like he might even get you guys a new stadium. That's it's the magic touch, man, and everything he does is very. I mean, again, I hate to use the word, but magical. So why not?
What should fan bases do moving forward? Because I feel like fans in DC or Washington fans, they don't really hold Snyder accountable enough. I just feel like Snyder gets somewhat of a pass. What says you?
I feel like as far as the fans are concerned, it's tough because I feel like a lot of organizations, even the Cowboys fans base. I mean, listen, they're as long as they are there, people are gonna buy, man. Like it doesn't matter how bad the team is. There's always gonna be a sucker out there that's gonna spend the money and put, cash in Snyder's pockets because it's supply and demand. Football is this country's national pastime, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean, everybody watches football. I don't care who you are, right? For the most part. The only way to affect change is if you start hitting him in his pocketbook. And unfortunately, it's not going to happen. When I was working or when I went to Cowboys games, a large pizza is almost $100, man. And you know what? People are buying them, and you're walking through the concessionary. You're thinking they're giving away pizzas, man, but they're not because you got people that are, they're like, you know what? I don't care. I'm at the game. I'm going to spend $30 on a Bud Light. Like it is what it is. And so I think there's always going to be people that are always going to kind of like keep guys like Snyder and even Jerry Jones relevant in regards to financially because they're going to pay. They don't care. They
Right.
just don't care. And as far as and then the media might be. And again, I don't follow the Commanders like that, so I can't speak for the media and how they report him. Are they hard on him? Kind of like you think about like New York, the New York
Oh, they're
media.
hard on him.
Okay, so
I
that's good.
mean, they are as hard on him like they are with James Dolan because, of course,
Good.
Dan Snyder, the toxic workplace environment in Washington, the sexual misconduct, sexual
Yep.
harassment stuff, as well as his incompetencies as an owner. But
Right.
I just feel like enough's enough. This
But
dude,
and I'm glad you brought up that point about like the whole, the stuff going on. The difference between, like the NBA, they'll get guys out like that. You saw what they did with
pronto,
Donald Sterling,
yeah,
the Phoenix Suns owner.
Robert
I'll give him
Sarver,
credit.
I think, yeah.
I'll give Adam Silver a lot of credit towards that. Roger Goodell, unfortunately, he's a guy that's been placed by the owners, and I know the commissioners typically they work for the ownership. I get it, right? But he is such a puppet that he won't do anything. He doesn't care. They're like, dude, this is a $1 billion industry. Why am I gonna mess with and regardless of what we think about Snyder, he's still one of the richest owners in the National Football League. He just
He is.
is.
He
He
is.
is. So,
I,
Jerry
I
Jones, Kraft, guys like that, like they're not gonna get in the way of or at least Goodell won't get in the way of a guy like that because he's got too much pull.
I think the reason why Adam Silver does a better job than Roger Goodell, I don't know if you see it, but
Mhm.
Adam Silver is more of the players. Like if the
Yeah, he's a
players
players
have a
commissioner.
problem, he has
Right,
no problem supporting the players.
right,
Roger Goodell is more of the owners.
right.
He like whatever the owners say, he'll go by with it. And to me, it just seems like good old boys club on the
It
NFL's
is.
part.
It is. And unfortunately, I feel like that's part of it going to double back into the whole Magic Johnson thing. He may not get an opportunity because I mean, I don't know. I don't know the stats. I don't have in front of me, but I don't know how many black partners or ownership there is in the National Football League, or I mean, just in general, in sports in general,
Yeah,
but
I
for
don't
sure
know
in the
either,
National
but
Football League, like that would be something to look into. Will he ever be a owner or like an outright owner? Probably not because he's not like a billionaire like that,
no.
But
And I
if
don't
he
know
can be
how
part
the
of the
billionaires, how
organization,
the other owners, how they're going to,
receive him.
yeah.
you know. So It's one thing to be, oh, that's Magic Johnson, man. He's funny, man. Like, oh yeah, he's always smiling. But then when he's in the room with you guys, you're gonna be like, oh, hold on, man. Nah,
Jerry
you
may
can't.
like him because of box office entertainment. Jerry loves that as far as with the branding, the marketing, and I don't
And
think
he's about
Robert
his money,
Kraft would have had a problem with it.
right? And if the guys like that are involved like that, then there's a good chance. But at the end of the day, man, money talks. And as a Commander fan, if you are out there listening, support your team. But honestly, man, like if you really want to try to affect change, you got to stop going to the games. You got to stop buying merchandise. I haven't bought Cowboys merchandise in a while now. I mean, I'm just one guy. I know I'm
Really?
not affecting because yeah. I mean, I don't because I support them, but I'm just kind of like I'm not giving y'all no more money, man. I've been giving y'all my money for 20 something years. Y'all can't even win a damn divisional game. Like what's the deal with that, man? I'm spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars to go to your games, right? I mean, listen, man. Dallas Cowboy games, whether it's on the road or at home, are one of the most expensive tickets to get anywhere. Real quick story because I know we're up against it, but a couple years ago I went to a Cardinals game. It was a Monday night game. Cowboys. They were playing the Cardinals on Monday night. Man, tickets were like $300. I got a family of four. Right, we went down there to Tempe or Glendale, Arizona. I spent like $350 on each of those seats. Literally, the next week they were playing like I don't know the Browns. Those same seats that I had were like 110.
Mm.
That's the Dallas Cowboys effect, man. So like I'm giving them all this money, and y'all not even. Yeah, I'm not seeing no ROI for all my Wall Street people out there. Return on investment. Where's my return on investment? Give me a Super Bowl. Give me
Yeah,
something. So Commander fans, if you're spending that money
yeah,
and
you're part of the problem,
you're part of the
and
problem too. So
I've told like Knicks fans, like, look, if you still support your team, if you still want to support your team, that's fine. No one's telling you not to support your team, but when you continuously spend your hard-earned money to go to
exactly.
the Knicks to watch the atrocity and then blame
Mhm.
Dolan, nah, you're part of the problem because you
Yep.
continuously give your money directly into this man's pockets. And I
Yep.
feel like with Washington, look, man, Snyder, you know how incompetent he is as an owner. You know how horrible he is. Why do you
Right.
why? But but it seems like to me his days in
Oh, no.
Washington are numbered,
Oh
and
yeah. It has to be.
it has to be. I mean, as long as he's there, it's not only bad for business for Washington, but it's bad for business in the entire NFL. And to your point, if some owner who is willing to help this franchise out and turn it around, my God, the NFL would be even more lucrative.
Yeah, and that's saying a lot because it's
That's
lucrative
a
as it
lot for
is.
you to say as a Cowboy fan.
No, man, I'm telling you, man, I'm not a fanboy. I keep it real. I'm very objective about everything, not just my team in general. I call it what it is. I give credit where credit's due, and I give the blame when the blame is due. And I'm not buying into that stuff, man. And I'm not spending $100 on a 7-inch pizza like when I can go to 7-Eleven or the local gas station and get the same pizza for $2.99. Like I'm not doing that. I'm not stupid. So
I feel you. I
yeah,
feel you. Let's talk about the NFL draft. As you all
yeah,
know,
yeah.
in April's draft, Washington, they got the 16th overall pick. Who knows what they may do with the 16th overall pick? They may either go with an offensive lineman. I would like to
Right.
see them go with an offensive lineman, but you never know. They may try to go on to the defense, get themselves a cornerback. What says you?
I think you got a new offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy. Maybe give him that first pick and see what he wants, man. Like it'll be a nice gesture to see. You want to get if he's going to be cooking, he should at least be able to pick out the groceries. In my opinion, so
Right.
I feel like you guys can still get away defensively. As long as you can see, man, football is really basic. Can you protect your quarterback and can you get after the quarterback? You guys can get after quarterbacks. And I think you might be able to protect them a little bit better now with some of your, offseason signings and maybe what you do in the draft. So
Right.
why not go and get a weapon for Sam Howell or whoever your quarterback is, like a young guy like that, man? Like you need talent on the field, man. And right now, you guys are kind of like you got Terry back there, but he needs some help too. And if I'm Eric Bieniemy and if Ron Rivera comes to me and is like, hey man, what do you need? I'm taking somebody on offense, whether it's one of these receivers that are coming out. Who knows who'll be there? Will Jordan Anderson be around? the kid from Ohio State. I can't never say the kid.
Jackson Smith Najimba.
Najigba, whatever. Shout out to California, from Cali. But whatever, like
Yeah.
whoever is there offensively, go and get them. Go and get them. And then whatever happens. But when you have a defensive coach, they tend to kind of, because like where was Terry? When was Terry drafted? Like as far as rounds and stuff like that, do you remember?
I'm looking it up right now, but I know I think
He
he was a
kind of
first
felt he
round.
felt to you guys. It wasn't like, oh, we got our guy, right? Because you guys invest heavily on the defensive side of things, right? And you guys probably still need some cornerback help, but I
We
feel like,
drafted
man,
him in the 3rd round.
okay, third round, like not a high draft pick per se,
Right.
right? But why not spend a pick on a guy like who? I mean, maybe go get a tight end to pair with Logan.
Actually, I'm glad you mentioned tight end. And I
Yeah,
don't know how you feel about this. Either the tight end from Utah or
Kincaid.
yeah, him
Yeah,
or Darnell Washington from
Arnell Washington
Georgia.
from Georgia. Yeah, he's a Vegas kid. I know. I kind of know a little bit of his exploits. He's not a blocking tight end, right? He's an inline vertical kind of guy. I'll tell you what. This draft class is very deep in tight end. You got the kid out of Notre Dame, Michael Mayer. Like,
Oh yeah.
they got some guys, man. But I like, why not go get one of those? One of those guys will be available at the 16th spot for sure. For
And
sure.
even though I like Logan Thomas, but again, a couple of years ago, he is coming off an ACL and he's in his 30s.
Yeah, right. Get another guy out there, another young guy. Maybe keep him fresh. Logan out there. Yeah, he had a couple of nice games, but definitely, man. Like I feel like you got to get more weapons. And it's either you're going to get a tight end or you're going to get an outside guy to pair with Terry. Because your quarterback needs help. You guys don't have the type of quarterback, and even my quarterback, they're not going to just go out and win you a game. They need help. So whatever Eric and we saw with Kansas City, they like speedsters. So maybe there's a guy out there that they like that maybe they can do some things and maybe, you never know, inject some life into that offense. Because right now, as a defense, I'm looking at if I'm playing you guys, I'm like, I feel like if I can neutralize Terry McLaurin, or McLaurin, whatever you want to call, like I feel like I'm okay. I'm okay, but and run the football, man. So
Yeah. I think defensively, as far as Washington, we're fine. We're solid. Offense is our biggest concern. And if we want to put Sam Howell in a position to succeed or feel like he's our guy for us, you
right,
got to do your due diligence by surrounding him with talent. I mean,
exactly,
I
man.
like McLaurin. I like Curtis Samuel. I like
Oh yeah,
Dotson.
you got him too. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you got Dotson. So you got some guys. It just depends on how you scheme them up and you add some more talent, man. It's kind of like it's kind of like what's a food that everyone kind of
Mac and
likes. I
cheese.
mean, mac and cheese, right? Oh, perfect. I love mac. I don't think I've ever met anyone who's like, oh man, mac and cheese sucks, right? Like, and if they do, you got problems because mac and cheese is so basic, right? It's pasta and cheese. Who don't love that, right? But excellent point. You got mac and cheese, which everyone loves. Man, maybe add some bacon to it. Maybe add another layer of cheese. Like that's what you guys need to do because you have something that could work. It's a staple in as far as nutritionally, right? But if you add some other things to it, man, it makes it even better. So you guys are kind of like mac and cheese at that point.
Okay. Um, which players, whether trade or in free agency, do you think Washington should target?
Well, we're going into the second phase or the second round of free agency, so there's not going to be a lot of like big splash name guys. As far as free agencies that are the guys that are still out there, like the top ones, like OBJ comes to mind, right? As far as offensive side of things, defensively,
Right.
Bobby Wagner's still out there, right? And there's reports now that the Dallas Cowboys won't go for him now because they signed LVE. So they're kind of, where does he fit and all that, right? Because he's a middle linebacker too. So, as far as free agency is concerned, I mean, like maybe you go look at OBJ, he could be like a nice 2A, 2B type of scenario if he's willing to play for Washington. That's one thing. But does he want to do that? He's at a point in his career where he probably wants to play with a more established quarterback. I mean, nonetheless, he's coming off of another knee injury. So that
Yeah,
maybe
I see him going somewhere else to play with a proven commodity. And not only
exactly.
that, I don't know how much money is he willing to take.
And is he healthy enough? Like that's the thing. Like we don't know. Like I get it. When we last saw him, he scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl, right? And then he got hurt. Later on. But we don't know what he's going to be like. And depending on, like you said, how much money he wants to command, I don't. You like that command, right?
Yeah.
Does he want? Is he a viable option again? So I think you guys might be out there running for him. Who else is out there? There's really no other real notable guys. I think you guys are just gonna have to go into the draft, and
Mhm.
and that's one of the best ways to do it. Man, you gotta have a good balance. I mean, you gotta have good veterans, and then you got to go and draft guys. And I think right now, you guys got some solid guys per se, but you probably need to just infuse yourselves with some more. Like I said, the only free agents are no, I know he's not a free agent, but Lamar Jackson. That's the only guy I feel like you guys need to trade for, or maybe sign Bobby Wagner. But does he fit your defensive scheme? I don't think so. But he's a notable, splash type of guy, which you guys have done in the past, and it hasn't worked out. You mentioned Albert Hainsworth, Bruce.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Josh Norman, I mentioned.
Josh Norman, and even before that, this probably I don't know. I don't know how far back you go, but you guys, Bruce Smith, the Hall of Fame defensive end from Buffalo. You guys had him when you guys were the Redskins, and it didn't kind of pan out for him. So you guys have made splashes in the free agency pool, but they've never really worked out, So maybe, you just maybe go to the draft. And outside of the quarterbacks, because to me, this is not a very good quarterback draft class. To me, honestly, it's not. Even the top guys to me are kind of like they're mid, in my opinion, right?
You don't like Bryce and CJ at all?
No, I mean they're good, but I mean, I just put out a video yesterday about Bryce Young, and I got 3 more parts to my series that I'm working on right now, talking about like CJ Stroud and the Richardson kid and the kid from Kentucky. I think they're okay guys depending on what their situation, but they're not franchise guys in my opinion. And there's some questions to each and every one of them. If I had to pick, if I was a GM today and someone had a gun to my head and they were like, "Hey, you got to pick a quarterback," then I'll probably go Bryce Young. But I'm kind of like, I don't know, because he's kind of small and stuff like that, and it just but I feel like next year will be better because you got some guys, you got some franchise kind of guys in that draft class. So if you guys are if you're willing to suck for one more year, maybe you get in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes, and next thing you know, I'll be on your show a year from now, God willing, and we're talking about, what, man, the Commanders, man, they kind of doing something.
They're kind of doing something. I like both Bryce and CJ. I think they'll be really good. I think Carolina, they're gonna have to make a serious decision on who they're gonna draft number 1 between Bryce and CJ, but you can't go wrong either way. I just think Anthony Richardson, I mean, 6'4", 244, but I'm just not sold on him as a passer. I think he's very, very raw. I just think he would be in a better situation if you draft him, but at the same time, he sits for a couple of years in order for him to learn the offense as much as possible and for him to develop.
And I'm kind of against guys sitting there. I feel like guys, you'll know if they can play or not, man. With the amount of resources quarterbacks have today, even from the youth level, man. Like when I was growing up, you didn't have like quarterback coaches and these different, institutes where guys can go. Man, like these kids have we got the VR, the virtual reality stuff. Like they have so much access to training and videos and resources up the yin yang. I feel like at some point, man, like you can play or you can't play. And I know, there's some outlying kind of guys, Mahomes, he sat for a goal.
Aaron Rodgers,
but I felt like those guys would have been studs if they were given the opportunity from the jump. Like that's how I feel. I maybe back in the day that was kind of like the mold. Oh, let them sit for a little bit, let them learn the game, and that's how it was. Back in 1990 and early 2000s. But I feel like now we're paying these guys. Can you play or not? You saw what the Cardinals did. They drafted Josh Rosen. It didn't work out. They went ahead and cut him.
Kyler Murray the next year.
And then Kyler, and I know he's kind of not panning out either, but he kind of had a little nice run, so.
I still think Kyler can be good. Kyler's problem, just like with Bryce Young, has been size, but at the same time, Kyler's maturity, because I don't think Kyler works or studies hard enough. And if that weren't the case, the Cardinals wouldn't put a clause in his contract in which, you got to study 4
Ding,
hours.
ding, ding. You're absolutely right. And I think that he's not a leader, right? And your quarterback is technically by default is your leader of your team. So,
Yeah.
But I feel like guys today, man, like they can play. You put them in there, you'll know if they can play or not. Like we're gonna learn a lot about guys like Jordan Love. If Green Bay finally moves off from Aaron Rodgers, can he play or not? Because guess what? He's been sitting. But I feel like if you're drafting a high draft pick, like in a quarterback position, they got to know how to play. I'm not going to have you sit because guess what? If I'm that head coach, I don't have 2 or 3 years for you to sit because I might be gone in 1 year. So I don't know.
That is fair to say. Let's finish it off. NFC East. Who's winning the division heading into 2023?
Going in 23, I'm not trying to, and I know people are going to be, oh, he's going to say that, of course. I feel like, and I'm going to give you my reasons why. I feel like the Cowboys are going to win the division. And here's why. I feel like they've added some really solid pieces. They were a couple games away from winning the division. Last year, I know the Eagles it looked like they ran away from it, but, the Cowboys down the stretch fumbled some games that they probably shouldn't have lost, like the Jacksonville game. That was a game they probably should have won to stay in contention with the Eagles. But the Eagles lost a lot. They lost their defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator. You've lost about 6 or 7 key starters on your defense, which come to find out they really weren't that elite because they saw how bad they got, torched and Super Bowl still. Nonetheless, that's a lot of change, man. That's a lot of change. Offensively, I think they're going to be okay. Nick Sirianni did a really good job. Him and his offensive coordinator, what was the guy's name? I forgot his name, but he's the coach now over in where did he go? Arizona. Or no, was that defensive coordinator? Anyway, he's gone.
But Jonathan Glenn.
Nonetheless, I feel like those losses to me are going to be pretty impactful. And with the Cowboys adding like Gilmore to help shore up the other side of the field, it's going to be, Cowboys have one of the 2 best cornerback duos in the National Football League, I would say at this point. So, when you add that, I think the Cowboys are going to be, if not the outright favorite, but they're going to be, in most people's eyes, the odds-on favorite or at least a close favorite to win the division, and the Eagles will be close second. Like, if the Eagles do it, I won't be surprised, but I'm really counting on the Cowboys. And I think the Giants are going to take another step. They've added some really good pieces in the offseason. They traded for Darren Waller if he can stay on the field, right? Because he's always hurt. Brian Dable will be his second year working with Daniel Jones. They franchise tag Saquon. He had a really solid, productive year.
Assuming if he stays healthy.
Assuming he stays healthy. They re-signed. They got talent, man. You got Darius Slayton. Sterling Shepard should come back. Hopefully, again, he got injured too. So they got some pieces there, and they got good coaching. Their defense is always going to be kind of, middle of the road, but they do some good things there as well. And then it's going to be you guys, unfortunately, unless, you make a splash and you upgrade, because I feel like you guys haven't done anything really
right
to change your trajectory from last season, because you're pretty much running it back with everyone else that you had last season.
I agree there. I think the Dallas Cowboys should be the favorites to win the division because of the offseason moves that they made, particularly with the trades. With Dak, there's nowhere to go but up. They did lose. They did cut Ezekiel Elliott. They saved up in cap space. And I just look. Oh, you said something, Ryan?
No, I was saying thank God they cut Zeke because he needed to go. He was dead weight.
And the only concern I have with the Dallas Cowboys is Kellen Moore is no longer there as the offensive coordinator. Mike McCarthy's going to call the plays on offense. I've said to people he's nothing more than a product of Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. There's been issues with his clock management from time to time, but I do think the Cowboys should be good enough to win the division. The Eagles, they'll take a step back, losing all those starters, and offensively they'll be fine, but they won't be what they were last year. Giants, they'll finish 3rd in the division. I think adding Darren Waller does help Daniel Jones, but at the same time, Daniel Jones, you got to back it up because you got your contract.
Yep, that's a big factor.
Right. So anyway, I think Dallas, it's their division to lose, in my opinion. So I think, and plus, we didn't even mention the draft with Dallas, and we all know the draft is Jerry's bread and butter.
Yep, they did a lot of good guys. in years past. So we'll see what they're gonna do, man. The draft is always fun for all these teams because you want to see what new talent that they can come in and develop, man, and see how long we can keep them for. And when we got Micah Parsons, that was a godsend, because we were gonna probably draft the kid out of Denver, ended up getting him, the corner,
Patrick Surtain.
And then J.C. Horn left, and then we ended up getting Micah Parsons, who I felt like was a real game changer for us on our defense. So you just never know, man. Every year.
Yeah, Shannon Sharp was the one who said this dude is going to change your life.
Yep, and he has, and my thing with him, he just needs to probably bulk up a little bit more, because if they're going to have him playing like T.J. Watt, he's going to have to get conditioned, because he wore himself down towards the end of the year. Actually, he wasn't as effective as he was early on in the season. So, but, hey, that's the fun thing about it. Draft night, we all have hope, whether you're a Commanders fan, Cowboys fan, it doesn't matter. Like, everyone is 0-0. We're all undefeated, and that's what makes it so fun and exciting, especially when the season rolls around. And we get to guys like us get to talk about it. That's what it's always fun.
All right. Well, anyway, brother, it was a pleasure having you on the show. We got like 1 minute left. Is there anything you want to say left?
Yeah, man. First of all, man, appreciate you having me on, man. I had a great time, honestly. You guys can catch me on Instagram at clutch.sports.talk. Also hit me up on YouTube. Subscribe, man. I'm trying to build a YouTube up a little bit more. Just simply type in Clutch Sports Talk. I'm literally the first guy that pops up. You'll see my big mug on there on my logo, man. So I've got some good things happening, working on. Like I said, I'm talking about a 4-part series of the top quarterbacks in this upcoming draft. I'm going to probably come back with my live streams, either Sunday mornings, my NFL Sunday morning. We're going to break down and talk everything NFL. And maybe do some stuff for the draft. But other than that, man, that's where I'm at. So, Parnell, appreciate you having me on. And good luck to the Commanders, man. It's all love. We all love football. We're all brothers here. But at the end of the day, man,
it is what it is. Not. I feel you. Well, thank you, brother. As you all know, folks, Commanders Demand. It's your boy Sports PSP. Enjoy the rest of y'all day. Peace.